Hello, everybody. Start working your way in, find a seat, get an extra cookie, make sure you got some coffee. I feel like someone should flash the lights in the narthex like when we're doing last call. Hey, Jonathan? Jonathan. He's not listening. I was just going to get people in the narthex to come in and sit down. All right, let's have a seat, please. Everybody, come in, grab a cookie, come in, sit down. All right. So, does everybody have a copy of the annual report? Okay, good. So if you'll notice on the agenda, the notice of call of annual meeting, the Congregational Church of Excelsior, UCC, 471 3rd Street, Excelsior, Minnesota, 55331, February 9th, 2025, after church, which is right now. The purpose of this meeting is to review the past, elect new council members, vote on proposed 2025 church budget, share hopes for the upcoming year. Published this day and read 3 consecutive Sundays in compliance with Article 6C of the bylaws amended March 1st, 1998, dated today, January 19th, 2025. I officially call this meeting to order. Jonathan?
Let us pray. Oh God, you are the Alpha and the Omega. Your Spirit covered the waters in the very beginning, and that is so long ago, it's so hard to comprehend. We'll go back a little less far. Your Spirit was with this church in 1853, 1854, 1855, and on we could go for 172 more years. Your Spirit has been present in this place, present through all the changes and joys and sadnesses and dangers and good news. You are with us yet today. Continue to guide us into the new future that you have in store. We give you thanks for your never-ending presence. Amen.
All right. If you'll notice on page 3 is the Covenant of Fellowship. I'm going to read the bold print, and then I would ask that you all respond with the sentence after. All right. Value others. Listen. Think unity. Be positive. Think about and address church issues in a positive way. Forgive. Forgive one another and ourselves as God forgives us. All right, so I'm going to make a motion here to accept the minutes from the 2024 annual meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Say nay. Okay, the minutes from 2024 pass. All right, ministers report. Back up, Jonathan.
So in my prayer, I made reference to the age of this congregation, which I think is just so fascinating. 172 years. I like history, and it has been really fun to be a part of this congregation's history and to learn about its past. I've read a lot of the annual reports. I know a lot about the past 25 years at least, and maybe as I have more time here, I can learn about the previous 150 years too. But I think about these annual reports as I prepare the minister's report each year, because I imagine some pastor after me also wanting to learn about this place and wondering what was happening in 2021, 22, 23, 24, and hoping that she would come to this annual report and read and have a pretty good sense of what was happening. So I did that, and in so doing, I also kind of left out inside jokes, if you will. An inside joke is just something that is known by people who are in the know. And I left this out because it wouldn't mean anything to someone far into the future. But really, all the good news that is contained in this annual report is because of inside jokes or knowledge of very specific people who are present here today. And that's what I want to communicate. Someone in the future, or you all, can read my report here, and it's a good overview of what's been happening and my outlook on this church. But very specifically, I want to say thank you to all of you. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to the people on MAC who are leading us into the future. Thank you to Bonnie, who gives me hugs and Hershey's Kisses. Thank you to Hank and Sharon for flags. Thank you to John and Nancy for your time here. Thank you to Betty for your quilting. Thank you to Judy and Sue for your bright faces and warm embraces. Joe, thank you for all your counting. Edie, thank you for being the first member here. Mike, thank you for painting our steeple. Susan, thank you for playing music and having such a good idea of what should happen music. I could go on and on and on. There are so many people who make this place possible. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All of this also comes back to God. So thank you to God who brings us all here. All of us who come from different places and have different dreams and different hopes, different histories, and yet we are here sharing in the collective mission and dream of this church, that the love of God that is so felt here, that again, little Walter said so clearly 4 years ago, the people there love me, and new people feel this because of you. So thank you to all of you. It has been so exciting to see more people experience this unique and special love here, and it wouldn't happen without all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Have you had a chance to look at the 2024 year in review? A lot of good stuff happened. So I'm going to make a motion that we accept the year in review. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Oh, wait, any discussion? Sorry. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, thank you. All right, I've got something here. So I'm going to move that in 2025, our church continue operating under the direction of a governing board, the Ministry Action Council, composed of members elected by the congregation who shall visualize the entire task of the church, advise the pastor of the general direction of church activities, and cooperate with the pastor in the formation of a well-rounded program, and that MAC shall be reevaluated at the 2026 annual meeting. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Discussion. Mark? Mark, would you mind coming up to the mic? Up here. Oh, He can come stand by me.
I just would like to move for a slight amendment to that motion in order to get a little more specificity into the process and the timeline. It's not much of a change, but I think it's important for this if we're going to vote on it. I can't read it myself because I don't know how to read, but Mary Sue can read it for me.
Proposed amendment to MAC 2025. Our church continues operating under the direction of a governing board, MAC, during 2025. At the same time, a committee will be selected consisting of 2 MAC members and 4 additional volunteer church members at large. The committee will develop recommendations for amendments to the church constitution or recommend a new constitution. The committee will present the plan to the MAC and the congregation by November 30th, 2025, for consideration at the 2026 annual meeting. During that time, MAC will meet monthly, and meetings will be open to the entire congregation. MAC consists of 9 voting members, the moderator, the treasurer, and 7 at-large members. The minister-at-large, and director of operations will also hold non-voting seats on MAC. Strike the remainder of the motion because it is not germane to the motion and is taken out of context.
Thank you. Any discussion on the amendment to the motion? Sherry?
I want to know what's different. What's different about the...
That there will be a committee working on the Constitution.
And a timeline.
And a timeline for that.
So as I understand it, and I just want to make sure that I've got this correct, and can we get a copy of that to Andrea? So the amendment to the motion is that we will continue with the governing body of MAC in 2025 as we did in 2024.
Yes.
Okay. Part of the process of 2025 will be the formation of a committee made up of members and MAC members, and I would assume the pastor, to look at the existing constitution and make amendments to reflect this new governing model, or perhaps make a new constitution if needed. Okay? And I also understand the amendment to mention that this would be done by November 30th. So the congregation would have a chance to review that, and then would be made as a motion in the following year, the annual meeting of 2026. Is that correct?
Correct.
We have a copy of it if you want.
Yeah. Ned?
Before we go about the business of discarding a constitution and/or amending a constitution and set a deadline for that work, I'd be interested in knowing what changes we propose to accomplish with the new constitution. It sounds like an immense amount of work, a lot of difficulty for a congregation that, from my perspective, runs well. Before we undertake this work, I guess I'd like to know what our goal is and whether we can get it done in a year, or 9 months.
Thanks, Ned. So my understanding on that is that an amended constitution or a new constitution, and you're right, it is a lot of work. So it's going to be a busy year, right? We got a building project. We're talking about amending or making a new constitution. It needs to reflect current governance of this congregation and the makeup of our congregation. The existing Constitution has been in place for a number of years. The last amendment was in 20 aughts. And it was amended because at the time the congregation had gotten much smaller and it was difficult to fill positions, and so term limits were eliminated, and
That wasn't an official amendment to the Constitution. That happened in 2014, as far as I understand.
Can you grab the mic, please? Sorry.
On the subject of the Constitution of our church, we believe that the last official amendment, which is the outcome of a congregational vote at an annual meeting, happened about 20 years ago. At the same time, over the past 15 years, at least, as the rhythms changed at our church, there were informal amendments to the Constitution because we simply could not follow it. For example, in 2014, the congregation decided that they would no longer enforce term limits on board membership because we were having such difficulty recruiting new members and filling these spots. So I think it's been a considerable length of time since we've been able to closely follow the Constitution. So this isn't just something that has come up in the past couple years. It is something that has been evident in the past decades of the church, where following the Constitution was very difficult.
Thank you, Jonathan. The other thing that I'd like to just make note of is that this is going to be a process, and it is something that we need to do because our congregation is changing. It's not the same as it was a few years ago. And so when putting this effort forward, I'm going to be hopeful that we will have a great group of people working on this together that represents this congregation, from the people that have been here for many, many years to the people that have just recently joined, because this is all of our church. Okay, so I will start over. We're going to have the amended motion that was just read. Do I have a motion to accept? Oh, well, we have a question in the back.
I have a question. If you vote on the amendment and it passes, do you still vote on the motion?
Yes.
You do. So all we're voting on is the amendment, not the motion. Is that
Vote on the
correct?
amendment first, make sure
Right,
you
correct.
the amendment, then you vote on the.
And then we'll talk about the motion. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not that great at Robert's Rule.
I didn't understand who's to, are the MAC members going to be on this new committee also? Or is it going to be separate? And who's going to appoint the members of the Constitution Committee?
The question
think-
was, who's going to be on this group? Will we comprise of MAC or members or both, and who will make those selections? Mary Sue? Okay, this is just what they read. It's my understanding that it would be a combination of a congregational group of people volunteering to participate in this endeavor. Now, it could be very hectic if all of you signed up to be part of that, but we would look at having an opportunity for the congregation to make that decision on who would be sitting down to make those potential amendments or new constitution. Does that make sense, Mark?
Yeah, in the proposal, it's open, I thought it was reasonable to have 2 people from the MAC and 4 volunteers at large from the congregation. If you want to make it 5, that's fine. It's just that I want to make sure there's a process that we define and a timeline.
Mark's amendment was just to make sure that there was a process to amend, and he listed a couple MAC people and 4 members at large. He didn't have a specific number on who would be part of that committee, but the purpose would be to have that done by November 30th, okay?
Well, I don't understand why the MAC members should be on when there's supposed to be fewer meetings. They have a lot of meetings already.
Well, that's a good point, and we've been trying really hard to keep. One of the things that I've been challenged with since I've been in this position is communication or lack of. And so I think having representation from MAC and the membership at large would help with that communication to make sure that we're all on the same page.
I was going to ask, it sounded like, Ned, you were offering a suggestion that the timeline might be aggressive. And so I guess one thought, maybe back to Mark, do we want to amend the way we propose the amendment such that November is not a must have a new proposal, but November is the latest that we will discuss something? I guess I want to make sure that if we get through the year, we don't have a specific amendment or new constitution ready, we still feel good about the progress we're making.
Could I suggest a friendly amendment? We instruct the committee to use all possible speed. But we could be doing some stuff that takes a lot of time and requires a lot of communication among the congregation. November's a great idea. I just don't know if it's workable.
So is it possible to have the amendment that November 30th is the time when we'll have something that we review possibly not decided on, but we'll have a date where we're working toward having something.
I think that's what this actually said. It didn't say have a plan, it said you have something to present
Okay,
to the congregation. It's 9 months to do it, and then another 3 months to review it, so that seems to me a reasonable amount of time.
okay, question there?
Yeah, if you don't have a finish line, you're never gonna, you're gonna keep this thing going ad infinitum. And because there's so much work involved in it, you need to have a stop point. And if it's a problem, there's something else, you can't make it at that point. We have other issues that we're dealing with that are probably more consequential.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think that's a good response. November is a good finish line to draw.
Okay. So since I'm not that savvy with Robert's rule, am I asking for a motion on the First Amendment? Or the,
Hold on, I'm getting-
okay, so.
Sorry, Tom, there's a
Oh,
couple more questions.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, I don't have something written, but I'm still in the discussion mode, so I had a question. It sounds to me like there's been good discussion on evolving the constitution of our church, which is a significant endeavor. And it sounds to me, and I am not one of those who has been able to come to the regular MAC meetings as a congregational member, so I fully acknowledge I'm not 100% up to speed here. But my first question is, through the course of this exploration, in preparation for something like a written statement we have here today, have there been any other explorations or recommendations on how to arrive at a thoughtful, collaborative approach to a constitutional change? My first question. My second question is specific to this motion. Is there an opportunity to have those who are deciding on what's next for our Constitution to be elected to that overall group? And maybe that would help with the overall numbers showing up, but that fair and accurate representation of all of us. So two-part question, again, still in discussion mode.
Okay, thanks, Janet. Jonathan, you have something?
Yeah, the first question was kind of dealing with what discussion has already existed or concerning a thoughtful approach to an updated constitution. Yeah. And I think that's where, I mean, I'm at the center of conversations here as the pastor. I attend meetings and I'm the leader of the church, which is a tremendous honor. And I realize that governance stuff like this can be a real pain, but there are other churches who are doing what we're doing, and we can really learn from them. Now, I think it would be a great disappointment to you if you learned that all my sermons were just the same sermons that a church 20 miles away was hearing. I wouldn't do that, but I think there's real opportunity to learn what is working for churches in the year 2025, because we have a lot in common. So one approach, and I mean that's been sort of the workshop of MAC, has been asking other churches, how are you organized? What works for people? So that has been the approach, and MAC, or our council, has, I think, some really good input that they've drawn from their own experiences over this past year and from conversations with other communities. So that's the first one. What's your second one?
Can we have a vote on who is on the committee to amend or redo the Constitution?
Yeah, right. And I think just like anything else, we want to make sure that our leadership is representative of our congregation and is filled with really informed, well-intentioned, positive people who love this place and are excited about the future. So I think that's a great idea, great idea. And I think getting back to Bonnie's point about MAC's involvement and, not more meetings, I do think it is really important that the people who have been engaged and have been attending every meeting are able to lend their observations. And that's where I want to be helpful too, because I have a lot of good advice that I want to share with you in the interest that this church can be a great place after I'm gone, after all of you are gone, that we can pass this on to those who follow us.
Thank you. Any other questions? Discussion? Nate?
Just want to raise a point of clarification. So I think what I'm hearing is what's being proposed is a committee that would come up with recommendations. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, I thought it was close enough. Okay. So what I'm asking is a question of clarifications, and what I'm hearing is that what's being proposed is a committee comprised of a couple MAC members and other church members come up with maybe recommendations and a direction forward on next steps, or maybe it's even a fully revised constitution, depending on how far the group gets. What I'm curious and what I'm wanting clarification on, and I think it's important that we all understand what this group is tasked with relative to the MAC and the congregation, is how does that role fit, right? So is that recommendation going to the MAC, and then the MAC's going to have discussion? Sure. Is the I really feel like I'm biting this thing. All right. So is the idea that the committee would come up with recommendations that the MAC is then somehow considering, right, before it goes to the congregation, or does the committee come up with recommendation that goes straight to the congregation for consideration? I think it's important that folks understand what that sort of role is, right, in that process, correct? Because I would hate to get to November and the group comes up with recommendations and then we're wondering what to do with them, right, or how that process needs to play out. So I just raised that question. I don't know if that's been thought through at this point. I think it would be good to consider how that all works relative to one another. I don't know that I have a preference, really.
Thank you, Nate. In the back, we have a question.
Mr. Chairman, I respect the leadership of this group and I call for the question.
Call for the question? Okay, then let's have a vote. So, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Nay. All right. That sounded pretty positive on the yays, but let's have a show of hands. All in favor, please raise your hand. We're voting on the motion as it's written, and then we're going to vote on the amendment that Mark and Mary's. Man, I'm so sorry, folks. Okay, we're voting on the amendment. Okay.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a motion to vote?
I
Okay,
made
second.
a motion to vote.
Second. Okay, show of hands if we're going to have this vote. All in favor? Okay, all opposed? All right, the yeas have it. Now, help me out. What's the next?
We're going to vote on Mark's amendment. No, the amendment to Mark's amendment. No, we have not. Point of order. This is not the way.
Okay, everybody. Okay, so just to clarify, and let's all just remember our covenant of fellowship, all right?
So Mark, what I'm telling you to do is to have him vote on your amendment at the moment.
Okay,
So what the next step would be is to have everybody vote on the amendment, and then the amendment would essentially replace the original, hold on, let me grab it. Essentially, what we would be doing at this moment is vote on the amendment, Mark's amendment, and then that would replace the original motion that Tom made. And then, once that verbiage has been replaced, we will then make the official vote, okay? So that's what this next step is. This next vote will be a vote to replace the language of the original motion, okay?
All right.
Everybody clear?
Janet?
Okay. So unfortunately, the question's been called, so that means it's time to vote.
All right, so we're voting?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, you'll be able to discuss the motion. You'll be able to discuss the motion, we just can't discuss the amendment anymore.
Okay, so
Yep.
we're, taking a vote on accepting the amendment that
Yep.
Mark presented.
Yep.
Okay, all in favor say yay. Yay. All opposed? All right, the yays have it. Now, we're going to vote on passing this motion, correct?
You can call for discussion if you want to, or somebody can call for the vote. on
Well,
the
I'll
amendment.
call for discussion after
Yep.
I get a first and second.
Yep.
Okay, so the vote, or the motion is to accept the amended motion as presented by Mark Kruger. Second. Any discussion? Janet? Oh. You both can have a turn.
I would like you to vote against this motion. I think boards are wonderful. I think boards are our way of serving each other. I think boards are a gift that we give each other in this congregation. I think serving on a board, when you have a term, you say, I'm committed, I am going to serve you. And I've always found it was a wonderful way to get so many people involved that wouldn't normally get involved. You get asked, someone recognizes that they need you on Christian Ed, or they need you on missions, or they need you on trustees, and you use your gifts for the glory of this church. I think boards are really important to be elected in, to have a term. I look at Christian Ed and I think, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be wonderful if she had a board behind her that supported her, met with her, talked about what they were going to do. Missions, I think all these boards are incredibly important to our church. Talk about fish. You know, here we are, and our boards are our way we serve each other. And we get much more input. We get people serving. So I would like you to vote no so that we can continue the system that we've had in place, which is boards, a nominating committee, church council, that we go back to these things where we vote, where we elect them. And that's why I think you should vote no for this.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, I'm going to ask for a vote. We're just going to go straight to a show of hands. Oh, Janet?
Could I have
Sure.
one counter?
Ben?
Okay. I'm going to ask you to vote in favor of this for the same reason that Janet just said not to vote for this. I'm going to ask you to vote in favor of this so that we can fix the Constitution so that we don't have a Constitution that says that you can't have right now we have a Constitution that says we have to have a whole bunch of places that we can't fill. And we don't know whether we can have all these boards right now because we can't fill all the positions that we say we have to have in this Constitution. So if we want to fix this and we want to go back to boards, great. If we want to go back to having the MAC, which I believe in and I'm on, then we can go back to having the MAC. But we need to move forward on the Constitution. Okay?
Thank you, Ben.
I'll walk over, Ned, while I'm
Wait,
talking.
as long as you're there, Janet had her hand out.
Oh, okay. I was just going to thank Mark for bringing that proposed amendment. I think it's a great idea because I think we've operated for a year with this kind of new midway proposal, and I appreciate the clarity you brought with adjusting that amendment to get something written. So, thanks
Okay,
to all for the
so I saw
attendance.
hands. Janet, and
Janet
then
and-
Julie, and then Ned. I saw Ned. Thank you, Sherry.
I was just going to add that I am asking for a vote to continue the MAC with respect and love for all of the feedback that I'm hearing too. I started with this church at a time on that little calendar when the bar was more like this than like this. And I've experienced significant change. And I have tried through my time here. I remember being a co-moderator with Tina for a certain amount of time. We were trying to get growth for this church increased and volunteered a lot. I also remember a time of, while I personally was working very hard to be part of this church, there were a lot of asks, there were a lot of meetings, and it did become hard to get people to come. And even though there's all good intention, it was hard to get people to arrive to take action and make decisions. And there was some confusion, and there was also some lack of communication. So while I am encouraging us to proceed with a MAC, I I put a little asterisk on that because I think there are some good questions and improvements in how we better collaborate and communicate or ask for clarification like you just did, which I'm still learning about with regard to the other matter. There's always a chance for compromise and for some shifts moving forward, yet to embrace something for us at our size that has helped increase action, I think has been very helpful to our growth.
Thank you, Janet. Julie?
I'm just requesting that before we vote, you could read the whole thing again, because in my head, they've kind of twisted. We're done with Mark's amendment, correct? So if we could go back to what you had read that we'll be voting on, I would appreciate it. Yes, for clarification.
Okay, yes, I'll
Yeah,
do that.
Thank you.
So we are voting on Mark's suggested amendment to the original motion. Okay. As a side note, sometime in the future, someone that understands Robert's rule, will you take me out for coffee? Thank you. I saw a couple hands. We could have a party.
I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but when I asked what the agenda for the Constitution change was, are we simply discussing for constitutional purposes whether we will have a number of boards or the MAC? Or is the Constitution as a whole up for reform on anything that anyone on the committee thinks needs to be discussed? Because I think if we can focus on an agenda, and if the agenda is simply committees versus the MAC, it's a terrific idea. If it's an unlimited bill, I guess I'd like to know more.
Thank you, Ned. All right, so I'm going to Nadia. Don't apologize.
I'm getting more confused the more people are talking. So if we can get some clarification on the different conversations that are going on. So I heard the amendment, which is for a group to look at our Constitution and potentially update it by November 30th, and then potentially go into place next year, our calendar year 2026.
Correct.
Okay. And so I'm questioning, is there another vote coming about getting rid of the MAC or creating committees?
No.
Okay. That's why I'm asking why.
Right. So
Yeah,
I'm
the-
going to read the proposed amendment because then
Perfect.
maybe that'll just help alleviate some of the confusion. Okay. So this is the new motion. This is the new motion. Oh my goodness. Our church continues operating under the direction of a governing board, MAC, Ministry Action Council, during 2025. At the same time, a committee will be selected consisting of 2 MAC members and 4 additional volunteer church members at large. The committee will develop recommendations for amendments to the church constitution or recommend a new constitution. The committee will present the plan to MAC and the congregation by November 30th, 2025, for consideration at the 2026 annual meeting. During that time, MAC will meet monthly and meetings will be open to the entire congregation. MAC consists of 9 voting members, the moderator, the treasurer, and 7 at-large members. The minister at large, and director of operations will also hold non-voting seats. Strike the rest of the motion because it is not germane to the motion and is taken out of context. Okay, now we're going to have a vote, right?
So I think, okay, so on page 13, that's where the original proposal was proposed, but Mark's words have been added now, like in the midst of that. So the proposal is that MAC continues, and we have an additional committee to be elected that will give even more clarity to the Constitution.
All right. We still have discussion. No one's called for a vote. In the back?
I'd like to propose an amendment to the motion to change the word selected to elected so that the committee could be elected by the congregation that's going to create the Constitution.
Good ears that you heard
Okay.
selected.
So does this take a whole new first, second discussion? Yes? Okay, so it's been requested that we amend the amended motion that members will be elected to look at the existing constitution, make amendments, or a new constitution if needed by November 30th. Well, it'll be presented by, let me rephrase that. The work that will be done will be shared with MAC and the congregation by November 30th. Did I have that correct? Yeah. Okay. Do I have a motion? So, okay, do I have a second? Second. All right. What? Okay, second. All right. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? All right, the yeas have it. Thank you. I just need to breathe for a minute. All right.
Yeah, yeah. We have to ask a question. We
That
just
was
voted
just
to
the
change the
elected.
word to elected.
Okay, so now we have,
I second the motion. Call the question.
okay. Any discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor of accepting the amended motion, raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. Thank you. The ayes have it. All right. Next on the agenda, elect new counselors, Ministry Action Council for MAC. All right. So there's 2 open positions, okay? And this might not be part of the agenda, but I'll just share it. Over the course of the last few months, there's been great discussion, names have been shared, there's been talk about filling these different positions, or these additional positions. Actually, one's only additional. We had a lady that was on the MAC and she left early last year, so we've had a vacancy, okay? So we're looking to add 2 members to council, all right? The names were looked at, reviewed, people were talked to, and then, of course, the volunteerism of Nate and Julie, Jenny. I'm falling apart, people. They're qualified, they expressed interest, they love this congregation, and so that's where we're starting, okay? So do I have a motion to accept these 2 people for new members of the MAC Council for 2025? I have a motion. Do I have a second? Any discussion? Julie?
Who was the nominating committee?
I'm interested in who the nominating committee was
It
for.
was MAC. All right. Any other discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Opposed? Raise your hand, please. So moved. The ayes have it. Thank you. All right. Accept the 2024 Treasurer's Report. Mr. Moss is going to join us for a moment.
All right, let's see if we can get through this one. All right. Really? You guys are going to walk out before I... Oh, I don't even want to talk to the hands, Sue. No, I'm joking, Sue. I'm joking. All right. Thank you, guys. All right. Okay, all joking aside, I want to begin by thanking all of you for continued support for this church. As I mentioned in my written report, the unprecedented growth in membership and giving during the 2024 has blessed this congregation in ways that I could not have imagined when I began this role. A combination of increased giving and discovery that some of the expected repairs were not necessary have created a surplus of nearly $88,000 for 2024. This does not include over $361,000 we've already received as part of the Heart to Heart capital campaign. Our current non-capital campaign savings total roughly $260,000, nearly double 3 years ago. There are still some adjustments that need to be made to the balance sheet prior to my final submission to the archival copy in the annual report. Our bookkeeper, Bev, and I are working to make sure that the memorial savings account is accurate. This may require the recalculation of interest payments to some of the savings accounts for 2024. I didn't put this in here, but that's the one that says, like, it lists the savings accounts in the annual report. I received some questions about costs associated with the capital campaign. In 2023, there was an anonymous donation made to the church to cover the initial discovery costs of what in 2024 became the capital campaign. That donation of $12,800 covered the majority of the expenses for the project. The church contributed an additional $8,230. A total of $21,030 was spent in 2003 and 2024. As many of you may know, we transitioned our savings to Fidelity in late 2023. This has reaped numerous benefits this year. We continue to have a mix of certificates of deposit and money market investments to maintain both liquidity and safe income. Most of the CDs that we were able to obtain in 2024 were in the 4.75 to 5% range. While interest rates are coming down, we are still vastly outperforming the sub 1% rates we were receiving previously at our savings account at Capital One. In addition, the switch to brokerage account has allowed us to accept multiple in-kind donations of stock that would have greatly benefited the church. If this kind of donation makes sense for you, please see me or contact me. I believe that we have prepared a realistic, balanced budget for 2025. I expect that we will be able to pay cash for the expected renovations. The church stands on very solid financial foundation. If you'd like to discuss the finances in any further detail or have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Motion made to accept the treasury report. Do I have a second? Discussion? Question?
I don't know that it needs to be a motion, but I would suggest that we look at an audit because we probably haven't had one done since Bill Wise, and I can't remember how many treasurers ago that was.
Yep.
And I think an audit, and as I said, I don't think anything wrong, but it's increased money, and we haven't had one.
I feel that's not a bad idea.
And good governance.
Yep.
So I think
Want it as a
that could be a decision of the council,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
To perform that audit and find the person that will do the audit, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, there doesn't need to be any special motion for that.
All
Andy,
right.
we'll make sure that happens.
Any other discussion on the motion? All right, let's vote. Everyone in favor, say aye. Everyone opposed, say nay. Thanks. The yays or ayes have it. Man. All right, so now we're moving on to the 2025 budget. Okay, do I have a motion to accept the 2025 budget?
I'll make a motion.
Motion made to accept the 2025 budget. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of accepting the 2025 budget, say yay. Yay. All opposed, say nay. All right. Let's see. Mary Sue, I think, are you going to do the endowment or are you going to do the endowment?
I'm going to do part of it and then Mary Sue will.
Perfect. All right, so we're going to have a report on the endowment.
Please go up to the pulpit. Please go up to the pulpit.
Yeah, incidentally, nobody has to vote on any of this, so it's not from that standpoint that I'm speaking. long time ago, in fact, it wasn't that long time ago, kind of thinking about it, but we used to have financial problems in this church. And as a part of a way to try and change all of that and build some integrity and some stability to the church and as it goes forward, we have established an endowment fund. Some of you may be familiar with it. We've had it for quite a while now, 20 years. Some of you may not be familiar with it. And the purpose of it is as a separate entity to ensure the validity and stability of the physical plant that consists within this congregation. Why is that important? Because the prices are going up. Everybody in this room watches their taxes go up, watches their cost of everything we do goes up on a pretty regular basis. And in order to ensure the fact that we're going to be here for a long, long time, long after we're probably all gone, we wanted to build some financial stability. In some cases, countries do it. Norway's done it extremely successfully. It's called a sovereign fund. The United States will be going through that process here in the next 6 months, a year, or whatever, because it is just proposed last week that we established a sovereign fund. This is our sovereign fund. If you have, Mary Sue's handing out the information, which are the statistical structure of what the fund looks like. It's doing very well. We've been around for 20 years, and we're now into a situation where we're actually making some money, and we're going to continue to do that. We're doing it on the basis as an independent entity, and if anyone, incidentally, is interested in participating with this, we're always looking for new people to join our board, because we are separate from the congregation. We are not held by the congregation in any way. There's a wall between us that basically is there to protect the integrity of both the financial parts of this and then the potentially, I guess, the church as well. So I would ask everyone to think about contributing to this. It's not an ongoing, always an ongoing fund situation. Basically, most of the contributions are made by people who are not here, who pass away and kindly enough and thoughtfully enough leave us something to remember them by. That money is well spent. It's carefully invested, and now it's starting to pay dividends. We've worked with Ben as we try to contribute to what the overall management of this church looks like and what the costs are going to be. And so we're supplemental now. Hopefully in the future we can be even more of a contributor to it. But if anybody has any questions, hopefully everybody got a copy of this. I'd like to thank both Mark and Mary Sue for their efforts on this. But it's very heartening to see we're doing well, and we'll continue to do so in the future. So please keep the endowment fund in your thoughts. Thank you.
As treasurer of the endowment fund, I'm going to take you through the annual report for 2024. But first, I'd like to talk a little bit about how the fund is organized. After we reached our threshold of $300,000 when disbursements could be made, distributions could be made, we reached that in 2023. And we established 4 different accounts in the endowment fund at that time. The principal account, which is the total of gifts, bequests, and memorials, known as the permanent capital, and will stay in that fund in perpetuity. The trustee escrow account, where 80% of the interest earned on the principal account is deposited until requested by the trustees for the church building and maintenance budget. We have a discretionary account where 20% of that interest that is earned from the principal can be invested in more aggressive investments. And we also established a checking account just to pay fund expenses. Now, if you're wondering at all about how the fund has benefited the church to date, the next time you're in the restroom, turn on the hot water. It comes right out of the faucet, courtesy of the fund's first distribution to trustees, which paid for a new water heater for us in 2023. So let's look at where we are today. If you have a copy of the annual report, it looks like this. It has tables on one side and text on the other. Look at the other side. Don't look at the tables right now, starting on page 1. I'm going to start about a third of the way down the page under financial highlights. The permanent capital fund has increased $11,430 over last year, which is about 3.5% after gains were distributed to the escrow and the discretionary accounts. The current market value of that fund exceeds the par value by a little over $63,000, and I'll explain more about that later. We had $735 in memorial contributions in 2024. We had no direct expenses or distribution from the trustee escrow account. Moving down to assets, the market value of the principal account was $375,179, which is what we would have received had we sold all of our shares at the end of 2024. The par value of the principal account is $323,000, which is the actual amount of dollars invested in that account. The $838,330 in the discretionary account is 20% of the income, interest income from the principal account. There's a little over $2,500 in the checking account to cover any expenses, and we did not have any expenses last year. The Wells Fargo sweep account was added as a place to park money left over from even dollar investments. Change, in other words. Those funds actually remain part of the principal account, and they will be invested in our next round of investments. And finally, there's $22,430 in the trustee escrow account, which can be used for building and grounds maintenance of the church. That money is available until July of this year. Trustees can access these funds by making a written request to the endowment fund and upon approval of that request. If it is not spent, the funds go into the discretionary account to be invested. These 5 items total $411,237, which was the market value of the fund at the end of 2024, which is $63,127 more than the par value of $348,110. If you turn to the other side and look at the bottom table, this is a summary of all the investments that we have. The maturity dates on the far right column go from 2025 to 2029. Those first 2 investments matured last Thursday and produced a little over $20,000 in gains, which will be distributed 80% to the escrow account and 20% to this discretionary account. The balance sheet at the top of the page compares 2023 to 2024. The principal account market value was about $11,000 over 2023, and our sweep account went up a little bit because of some of the money we did not invest. The trustees escrow account had a little over $1,100 at the end of 23. That should have been part of the discretionary account, but we kept it in escrow because we weren't sure if they were going to request it. And that probably will also be invested soon, leaving the balance of $22,430 for trustees to use until July of this year. The discretionary account went from a little over $2,000 to a little over $8,000, and we will be adding more to both accounts in about a week due to the 2 CDs that matured on Thursday. Checking account went down a little bit because we invested some of that money in our final investment round last year. The bottom line, the total 2024 distribution from the endowment fund to the church is $26,194 net of trading fees. That completes my report. You have any questions?
Just one quick comment, if it's okay. And that was that the church, for my part of the church, I want to thank you guys, but I wanted to let everybody know that the church didn't really request much this year because of the unexpected or the expected repairs that we didn't do this past year. We might ask for more. I told the endowment that we might ask for that this coming year, not in 2024. So there might be more that we ask from the endowment this year.
It's available.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Sue. All right, I think we're on to our last item of business. Other business. Is there any other business to discuss? All right, then I make a motion to adjourn the annual meeting. Do I have a motion? Second? All in favor say yay. Yay. All opposed say nay. Thank you.